Alright guys, Scrappy again today. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day. So far, of all the clips we have seen so far in the Black Ops 7 beta, arguably the most impressive belong to none other than Mercules of OpTic Texas, arriving halfway through last season on Toronto, then going to OpTic and changing their season around. Some wonder whether this year he wouldn't be as good as he was last year in Black Ops 6. Early signs indicate the opposite. All of these teams making roster changes to try and beat OpTic. Maybe the anti-cheat has something to say about that. Very much into your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Plenty to dive into today. Wanted to quickly start with this, right? So the OpTic Halo team, they played their final Sunday at HCS Charlotte, the final big event before the Halo World Championship. It was a very interesting season, right? Because Formal was actually going to quit Halo. He would only continue, I think he said, if he got this exact roster of Renegade, of Bounds, and of Legend, a team that was expected to, you know, maybe not dominate, there's other top teams in Halo, but certainly win quite a lot. That's not really what they've done, and yesterday they turned up to Sunday, they ended up coming third in the ends. It's just interesting timing, right? Because you've got Legends getting linked to potentially joining Surge for next season. We don't really know what Formal's going to do. Renegade and Bounds both tweeted out that they were free agents of BO7 before backtracking when Hex said, "You're not free agents." So it's just interesting. There's been a bit of talk about whether the team is fully locked in or whatever. I know that there's lots of OpTic Halo fans out there that are pretty frustrated with the way that these last couple of events have gone. And so, look, if they don't deliver at the World Championship, there will be serious questions as to exactly what led to this eventuality for the roster, because, yeah, they ended up falling short yesterday, top 3. Look, it's not terrible, it's still third, but given the expectations of this roster is to win and, like, always win, then them losing, especially to some of their former teammates, was not exactly optimal. So, yeah, the World Championship is just around the corner. That's the one that Formal was really looking to win. But let's talk about BO7 and what's happening over there, because obviously the Halo guys, we've not yet seen what Legend looks like on BO7, obviously, because he's been playing Halo, and as he should be, locking in for that World Championship very shortly. But they added Search and Destroy. They also added a new map. That is Blackheart. Well, not a new map. We saw it at the COD Next. We've seen gameplay of this map a few times, but they did add it to the beta. Is this map playable in competitive? I feel like it's a little small, and I do think there will be better. I'm looking forward, I don't know, when they're putting Toshin in the beta. I think that would be kind of nice to see. But this map is now in the beta. We got a few highlights of it. There's a highlight from Shotzzy we'll see in a second. There's also been some talk about this map Exposure, as you guys will know. And it's definitely an interesting map, right? Like, I think when you look at it on paper, it feels like the type of map that would have been in a game quite a long time ago. You know, it reminds me a fair bit of, there's a bit of Arsenal in here as well. There's like a lot of Black Ops 4 vibes. There's also even a bit of Advanced Warfare in here, to be honest. There's a couple of maps this reminds me of from Advanced Warfare. There's obviously the solar element, pretty obviously. But yeah, it looks like a jetpack map. Like, if you told me this was a map from Advanced Warfare or BO3 or something, I'd probably have believed you. So people have been questioning what was their decision making when they chose to make this map, right? Because it's the type of map that you wouldn't expect from a boots on the ground game. And look, they know that the wall bounce allows for kind of like a double jump mechanic, right? So I think maybe they've made this map in that context, and I do wonder whether future maps, because we understand that down the line, Season 1, Season 2, there's going to be tons of new maps coming out, some of which they might have saved from last year, that still might play well, but I think this is a map that seems to have been designed specifically with this movement in mind. So it has raised questions as to how some of the classic maps are going to play, because, look, Raids, I'm sure is still going to be phenomenal, but there have been questions on it, because Raid, when it came back in Black Ops 3, was never played. I don't think it was ever expected to be played, but it came back as a DLC map. BO3, we didn't really do that DLC map stuff because we had so many good maps from launch it wasn't necessary, whereas it was in some other games. Advanced Warfare had plenty of DLC maps, for example. The base maps in Advanced Warfare were fine, but the DLC maps, they also brought in quite a few. BO3, that didn't really happen, it wasn't really required, but even then, the jetpacks on Raid made that map play very, very differently. The wall running wasn't super viable, there wasn't too many places to really use it, but the jetpacks, the double jumping and all of this did allow for the map to play quite differently, and, you know, Raid was not too considered that year. Of course, it was called Empire, it was a DLC map, it was probably never going to get played, but when Raid came back in Cold War, I think everyone knew that it was going to play perfectly fine. Yeah, the movement was faster in Cold War than it was in BO2, but it was still boots on the ground Raid, so it was still probably the best map in the game. This game, you know, who knows, right? I'm still expecting the raid to be very good, but I do wonder for maps like Yemen, for maps like Meltdown maybe. I think Meltdown should be fine. But we know that the movement on this game is pretty aggressive, and we'll see some more examples of that in a second. Scump was hopping on, he was dropping a sweat ban in 65-0 flawless, so of course the classic sweat banning was on Black Ops 2 raid back in the day, 88-0 flawless, but yeah, he does a 65-0 right here. So Scump's been obviously killing it over the last few days, nobody should be surprised at that. There's been talk about whitelisted accounts and all this, depending on your opinions there. But speaking of the movement meta, I mean, we're only a few days in, and I wanted to share this. So this is a pretty interesting bit of information. So if you're walking around the map, you will find that many things you have to mantle over, right? And it can take you some time to do so, even with dexterity and, you know, some of the other movement perks and stuff like that. But you can actually do this in a different way because of the way that the wall bouncing mechanic works. And I think we're going to see pros do some really interesting stuff. And I don't think the full, let's say, depth of this mechanic has yet been seen. But, well, this guy right here, Ghost of Caldera, he figures out that if you walk up to this wall, instead of jumping up and mantling, what you can actually do is you can look upwards, and if I put this in slow motion, you'll see what happens here. So he jumps up, and then he basically wall bounces off the wall upwards. You can see how he actually gets like a movement speed buff here, because he jumps upward, and because he's looking upward when he wall bounces, that then sends him up. Now, of course, this is, you know, if there's a guy in the window, you're looking at the sky, right? But you're definitely in a better position doing this than you would be if you just mantle up normally, where it's an easy gunfight. So he shows a few other examples here. Now, this is pretty outrageous, but, you know, we are going to see stuff like this. This one, I think, was especially interesting. When getting into this window, he wall bounced upwards, like straight up the window, basically, in order to get away from gunfight behind it. You can see him do the same thing here. Looks up in the sky, hits the double bounce, basically, jump and then wall bounce. And he's done so to get up into the window very cleanly. So this is going to be, I think, a way for players to mantle over objects far quicker. And again, it probably does mean that players will start to lean towards slightly higher sensitivities so they can do this stuff and then flick back down to actually gun the guy in the window, right? But, you know, that's something I've not really seen people play around with before. And it feels like every day people are finding new ways to kind of use this, you know, use these mechanics. Here we are on Blackheart. Here's Shotzzy. And you can see that pretty much every gunfight that he gets into here, he's going to use the wall bounce to some degree. And this will become the meta, right? Like in Black Ops 3, just as an example, the jetpack had a limit, right? You could pretty much use it every gunfight, but you couldn't just chain it again and again, because you'd have to wait for it to replenish, obviously. Afterburner allowed it to do that more quickly. But you'll see that, you know, this is the way that Shotzzy will approach many gunfights. Obviously, this is a highlight clip, right? So it's not every single gunfight. But in a situation like this is what he's going to do. Hit the wall bounce, get the first guy, slide out of the way, wall bounce back the second way, kill the second guy, and then wall bounce again off this wall. Now, that last one was pretty disgusting. This is the type of stuff that you actually could do back in Black Ops 3, but people weren't really aware of it until quite recently. But you can see here, I mean, I'll just put it in slow motion so you guys can get the gist of what makes this so impressive. He's in a gunfight with this guy. He, you know, jumps into the wall and then bounces off it the other way. This guy's absolutely mind-blown. This must look wild from his perspective. And then guns him out of the sky. And that will be possible. It's not like this is just the only wall you can do this on. This will be the way it goes. And I think Shotzzy's showing exactly how you do it, right? You look into the wall, then you wall bounce kind of back and to the left off of it. Good luck dealing with that. So this is what Black Ops 7 looks like right now, and as I say, I think it's only going to get more aggressive over time. This one was especially spectacular. As I say, I think COD, whatever you think about this game, some people like it, some people don't. It's going to be fun to watch competitively this year. But yeah, nice clip from Shotzzy for sure, but the best clip of the day? Probably not. I think that goes to Mercules. So let me share this one, which is pretty insane, right? I mean, Mercules is using some similar movement mechanics to what Shotzzy is, but also just, I don't know, the snap, the gutty, pretty disgusting here.
It's just a chance to MVP.
Yeah, he's literally everything.
Shit! What the hell, man? The fuck? that the pattern or is that the default? Default. Yeah, okay, good. Rose in.
That's actually fucking impressive.
Okay, Mace.
This guy's taking his thumb off the stick and shit.
So everyone watching this, pretty mind blown that this guy is shooting like this. Now, of course, this is the best play. It's a highlight moment. But still, I don't think I've seen a cleaner POV than this. Like, we've seen a lot of good POVs, a lot of cracked out players, obviously. But Mercules POV actually, at least from some of the highlights, just looks a little bit different. And maybe it's to be expected, which is kind of concerning for the opposition, but it's something to consider, right? Because we know that OpTic last year picked up Mercules from Toronto. They made the right decision when he was potentially going to go to Cloud9 or some other teams instead. But how many players have been the best version they've ever been in their first year? Okay, maybe Simp. You would probably argue Simp's best season was BO4, came in halfway through the year. But it's not like Simp got much worse. In fact, he went on to do arguably better things a couple of years later in Cold War. Most players, they improve over time, right? And also Mercules, he only started playing Respawn a couple of years ago, really. So he's still relatively new to, which is wild, competitive play on this kind of a level. And he only came in halfway through last season and didn't even have consistent teams in that time frame. And, I mean, he was playing with Challengers kids not long ago. I mean, he was a Challengers kid, whereas Simp from Black Ops 4, he was playing with great players very consistently for years because everyone knew he was going to be this crazy star. Whereas for Mercules, that wasn't quite the case. For example, HyDra, when he came in Cold War, he was very good, but he got better in Vanguard, and then he got better again in Modern Warfare 2. And, even the last couple of years, HyDra's, it's impossible to be better than Modern Warfare 2 HyDra, really. So I think HyDra's done a pretty good job of maintaining that level to some extent over the last couple of seasons. But the point on Mercules is that it's relatively unlikely that Black Ops 6 Mercules is the best version of Mercules we're ever going to see. It's quite plausible that he should get better. Now, not necessarily that he's gonna get better or whatever, but he should become more effective as a player. You would expect that over time. For example, the World Championship this year, when push came to shove, pressure was really on at the Champs Grand Finals, didn't have his best ever series. That's something you might expect to change, right, over time. And yeah, he's still pretty icy, but it should be expected of any player that they're not going to be, absolutely the best player they could possibly be in the World Championship Grand Final. It was the same story for Dashy last year, for example, in 2024, when they eventually won. So that's something that I think Merc will get better at with time. But it just feels pretty concerning for the rivals that Mercules was like the truth, the messiah, the anti-cheat, whatever you want to say, at the end of last season, and the early signs is on this game that he's looking just as good, if not potentially even better, and in theory he should become even a more effective player than he has been, and that's pretty concerning when you think about Thieves, picking up Kenny, picking up aBeZy, making those changes, FaZe making those changes. Maybe it's going to be all for naught. So intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Just one final thing on Simp, there was actually trying out the Razor sub, because we've seen a lot of Drazah, of course, going on, but yeah, Simp's having a great time with this game. It's actually been great to see his streams, him getting rather animated. We've not seen that much from Simp, right, over the last couple of years. I don't know, it does seem like he's having a great time on this game. Of course, also playing this overload mode with the overload device, where he pops the 4-piece with the device. It's questionable whether that should really be possible, and then he puts it in the portal for them to score the point. So intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Just one final thing was pretty funny as well. Here he is on exposure, and I don't really know what this glitch is precisely, but he's managed to somehow pull out his parachute, which definitely is something that Treyarch might need to take a look at. But very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.